I couldn't find any photos or information related to the crime scene. I went to ask the person in charge of the Municipal Public Security Bureau. He told me that this case was too strange, and the higher-ups had ordered that no written documents or photos were allowed to appear. However, when the time came, we could go to the scene to investigate. I had nothing to do, so I sat down and closed my eyes to rest. During this time, Chen Yangting came to see me. I guessed he was bored, so he asked about my family's inheritance and my identity as the heir of the Ghost Valley. From his words, it was clear that he wanted to expose me. Unfortunately, Zhang Yi and Gue Guzi were from the Pre-Qin dynasty. No matter how I talked, he couldn't find any flaws in my story. The next day was almost the same. Everyone was waiting for Professor Liang to finish reading the files. Then, they would go to the crime scene to investigate. At noon on the third day, Professor Liang finally finished reading all the files. The Municipal Bureau sent someone to take us to the crime scene. In the group of experts, there were many people from the Metaphysics Society who had come because of the body reconstruction case. That was why Professor Liang had the authority to investigate the earlier events. According to his instructions, our first stop was Yufuda's attic. On the way there, everyone still looked calm and indifferent, but when they arrived at the orchard and arrived at the attic of Yufuda's house, the group of people's expressions became tense. Including me, everyone in the group of experts knew what had happened here. Although Han Wennan and the others had high cultivation bases, they were still scared. Professor Liang wore a calm face. He was the first one to push open the sealed door and walk in. We hurried to follow him. In the narrow attic, all the bloody things that had happened that day had been taken away as evidence. At this moment, only white dots were left in the room. After entering the attic and looking at the thick white dots, I recalled what Lu Chuanda had told me. I didn't know if it was a psychological effect, but I felt a chill run down my spine. Professor Liang was walking in the front. He didn't care about the white dots on the wall. Instead, he took his two students and went to the shrine at the end of the attic. Everything else was taken away as evidence, but the shrine on the wall and the bloody mural on the shrine couldn't be taken away. They had to stay there. At that moment, Professor Liang was looking at the mural of human blood in the shrine. After a while, Professor Liang suddenly turned around and said to his female student, "Xiao Xian, bring me that book." Professor Liang had introduced his two students to me earlier. The boy with the glasses was called Ling Duyu, and the girl was called Mu Xian. They seemed to be a couple, and their behavior was intimate. Chen Yangting was snubbed, so he shut his mouth and didn't say anything else. However, the relaxed expression on his face was gone, and his expression became much more serious. Clearly, he was on his guard. At this moment, Professor Liang's hands were already on the Mystic Bird mural. He followed the lines on it and touched it all the way down. When he reached the end, he reached out his hand and touched a spot marked with a white dot for a while. Suddenly, he said, "I remember the file saying that there was originally a small cauldron here, right? Little Xian, find a photo of that small cauldron." Following his instructions, Mu Xian quickly took out a few large photos from her backpack and handed them over. Professor Liang lowered his head and looked at them carefully. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. However, when I heard the word small cauldron, my heart was moved. I took 2 steps forward and stood next to Professor Liang, looking at the photo in his hand. As soon as I saw this small cauldron, my heart suddenly shook. I've seen this small cauldron before. No, to be precise, I've seen one too. Back in Meizhou, after Zhang Canwen had kidnapped Zhang Xingqing, I had searched his house. I found a small, dark cauldron the size of a cigarette case. It was exactly the same as the small cauldron in the photo in front of me. At that time, when I was studying that small cauldron, I had poured my Tao energy into it, but it was almost sucked dry. The small cauldron didn't have any strange effects, so I had put it in my luggage. I had never taken it out to check it, and it was still in my feng shui metaphysics shop. Does this small cauldron have anything to do with my small cauldron? After thinking for a while, I pulled myself together and asked Professor Liang, "Can you show me the picture?" At this moment, Professor Liang had finished looking at the picture. He was frowning and thinking. When he heard me, he threw the photos to me. I received them and quickly checked them. Soon, I found something different. This small cauldron was the same size as my small cauldron. The only difference was the writing on the front. The small cauldron I had gotten from Zhang Xingqing had the word Liang carved on it, but this small cauldron had the word Ji carved on it. The writing was the same as the one on the Death Sutra silk scroll. The difference was that the character Liang on the small cauldron was Yin, which meant that it was carved on the Ding body. However, the character Ji on this cauldron was Yang, which meant that it was carved on the surface of the cauldron. The small cauldron had the character Liang on it, so I didn't think too much about it. However, the character Ji on this cauldron made me think of Jizhou, Liang Prefecture, Yongzhou, Qingzhou, and so on. An absurd idea popped up in my head. According to the legends, in the early years of the Xia dynasty, Yu the Great divided the world into 9 prefectures. They could only see where the light was shining, and the surroundings seemed even darker. After Han Wenren finished speaking, he reached into his backpack and took out a few light sticks. After lighting them up, he threw them into the water below. The deep and serene water at the bottom of the cave did not seem to have anything special about it. The glow stick floated above it, and a gentle light quickly shone out. Han Wenren asked us to turn off the searchlight. After turning off the light, we all closed our eyes. After our eyes gradually got used to the darkness in front of us, we opened our eyes and looked around. The light from the glow stick wasn't strong, but it lit up an extremely wide space. The 4 of us had the cultivation of glory of consciousness realm, so our vision was much stronger than normal people. At that moment, the situation at the bottom of the cave was completely revealed to us. The bottom of the cave was an extremely open space. There was a circular hole about 2 meters above our heads, extending all the way to the ground. This was the black hole that we had come down from. Below the black hole, which was where we were currently standing, was a square stone platform about 10 meters long. At the center of the stone platform was a round thing that looked like a well. It was about twice the size of the cave above us. The rim of the well was completely made of stone, and the surface was smooth and smooth. It looked very exquisite, and the well was filled with water, which was level with the rim. The water that we saw was just the water in the well. Chun Yangting, who was beside me, was the first to speak. He cursed softly. "Damn it, I only detected that there was water below. I didn't think that there would be another world below. However, don't you think that the appearance of the square platform and the well is very strange? This is clearly a man-made structure. Could it be that there's a tomb below, and the hole that we came down from was a robber's hole?" Han Wenren shook his head and said in a muffled voice, "It doesn't look like a tomb. I can't be sure either. Our first mission is to save Professor Liang. Let's not care about that for now. Let's go down to the well and check if Professor Liang sank into the water or if he left the water and went somewhere else." After he said that, his body exerted force in midair, and with a sudden swing, he glided to the side of the well. He stepped on the edge of the well and used the momentum to land on the platform beside the well. The remaining 3 of us also followed suit, and soon all landed on the ground. After untying the rope, Han Wenren tried the walkie-talkie on him and realized that it couldn't be used at all. Thus, he found a pen and paper and wrote down the situation below. Then, he tied the paper to his rope and pulled the rope and shook it a few times. This was the signal that we had agreed on for the people above to pull the rope when we came down. I didn't want to miss out on this terracotta figure, so I urged him. Dao Zhongchun is from Mount Longhu, and he's an expert in the art of talismans. He's just trying to make this terracotta figure, so he won't trigger any other traps. Of course, if this terracotta figure is a hidden weapon, it'll be better. We've been looking for it for a long time, but we haven't found anything. Perhaps we'll find some new clues after triggering the traps. As for fellow Taoist Han's worries, they're groundless. The traps in a graveyard are nothing more than flying arrows and stones. But look around. It's just a cave. Even if there are hidden weapons or traps, they won't be very powerful. With our abilities, we can easily avoid them. Chun Yangting didn't get along with Han Wennan, so he agreed with my suggestion. Monk Miao Jue didn't have any ideas, and now Han Wennan was all alone. He hesitated for a moment, then clenched his teeth and agreed with us. We retreated to the side for the time being. Chun Yangting excitedly took out another talisman and threw it at the place where the terracotta figure was connected to the mountain wall. The corners of my mouth twitched as I watched. Fortunately, fellow Taoist Zhang was meticulous and thought of digging out the terracotta figurines to take a look. Otherwise, we definitely wouldn't have found this clue. I blushed. Fortunately, I was hidden in the dark and no one could see me. How am I meticulous? What I said just now was purely nonsense. I didn't expect to stumble upon a clue by accident. We didn't stop for long. I picked up the terracotta figurines, and the four of us went back the way we had come. However, we had to check each of the terracotta figurines for any abnormalities. That was why we walked much slower than when we came. Halfway through the journey, I suddenly heard someone breathing in front of us. I was bewildered. Han Wennan and the other two didn't have ordinary cultivation bases. Even I didn't feel tired after carrying the terracotta figurines for such a long time. How could they be panting? While I was puzzled, the panting became more rapid. The people in front of us also noticed the abnormality. Han Wennan suddenly stopped and asked, "Fellow Taoist Chen, are you okay? Are you not feeling well?" Now that he mentioned it, I knew that Chun Yangting was the one who had panted. I pondered for a moment and put the terracotta figurines on the ground with a serious face. After Han Wennan asked, Chun Yangting's panting didn't stop. Instead, it became more and more intense. Moreover, he didn't pay attention to Han Wennan. He didn't turn his head and continued to walk forward. Han Wennan was a little anxious. He quickly walked forward and put his hand on his shoulder. Before he could say anything, Chun Yangting suddenly turned around, his dark eyes gazing at Han Wennan. I used the searchlight in my hand to look at him. When I saw Chun Yangting's eyes, my heart sank. Strangely, only the whites of his eyes were left. Moreover, they were bloodshot. Eyeballs had a lot of blood vessels, and it was normal to see them when the eyeballs were congested. However, the blood vessels on Chun Yangting's eyeballs looked like wriggling earthworms. They bulged from his eyeballs and wiggled unceasingly. It looked terrifying, as if they could explode at any moment. After a moment of shock, Han Wennan obviously realized that something was wrong. He quickly withdrew his hands from Chun Yangting's shoulders and retreated rapidly, but it was obviously too late. Chun Yangting suddenly raised his hands and grabbed both sides of Han Wennan's shoulders, forcing him to be unable to retreat. Then, he tightened his grip on Han Wennan's neck. Chun Yangting exerted a lot of strength. In just a blink of an eye, Han Wennan's face turned red. However, he wasn't an easy person to deal with. He quickly took out a talisman and pressed it on Chen Yangting's chest. I could see that Han Wenren was still holding back. The talisman he took out was just a burning sun talisman. He wanted to force Chen Yangting to loosen his grip. However, Chen Yangting was crazy. Chapter 298. If the heavenly master of the Han family came, I would have to stay as far away from him as possible. I wouldn't have a share of that liquid. Even if I was brave enough to avoid the heavenly master of the Han family and make a deal with Han Wenren, the true dragon saliva was too precious. Once I told them about it, the Han family wouldn't be easy to deal with. Even if Han Wenren kept his promise, I wasn't sure how much he would give me. I immediately said, "Big brother Han, even if Chen Daozhang and Miao Jue aren't here, the two of us should be enough. As long as we're careful, we shouldn't be in too much danger." I purposely emphasized the words Chen Daozhang and Miao Jue aren't here to remind Han Wenren that since they weren't here, we wouldn't expose the true dragon's vein if we went there. There was nothing to worry about. Han Wenren hesitated after listening to me. Professor Liang insisted on going, so Han Wenren reluctantly nodded in agreement. We packed our things and set out together. When we arrived at the door, we saw Chen Yangting and Miao Jue walking toward us. Seeing that we were about to go out, Miao Jue wore an indifferent expression and didn't say anything. Chen Yangting, on the other hand, ran overexcitedly and said, "I knew you would go there today. Fortunately, I didn't come late. Let's go. Today, I must find out what exactly made me fall into that trap yesterday." He still looked tired, but his spirit was good. His body had almost recovered. Han Wenren gawked and dropped his jaw. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to stop this operation. However, he had just agreed. If he objected now, wouldn't it mean that he was guilty? Feeling helpless, he could only persuade Chen Yangting. "You're still injured, so you should be careful. It'll be the same after you recover." Chen Yangting didn't listen to him and insisted on going. The two couldn't come to an agreement. In the end, Professor Liang lost his temper and scolded Han Wenren. "You're a man, so why are you so stubborn? If you want to go, just go. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Han Wenren was rebuked, and he wasn't a quick-witted person, so he stammered and couldn't say anything. He could only hang his head dejectedly and no longer speak, following the crowd on their journey. It didn't matter to me whether Chen Yangting and Miao Jue found the true dragon vein or not. However, I was worried that Han Wenren would think of some other method to stop us. That's why I purposely lagged behind them. After Chen Yangting and Miao Jue were far away, I whispered to Han Wenren, "Since he has already informed his family, even if we go to the cave today, as long as we stall for time, the probability of Chen Yangting and Miao Jue finding the true dragon vein isn't high. Tomorrow, when the people of his family arrive and take control of the situation, it doesn't matter if Chen Yangting and Miao Jue found the true dragon vein or not." Han Wenren stayed silent for a while. It wasn't hard to guess what they were thinking. Han Wenren wanted to buy time by digging the terracotta statue, and Chen Yangting simply wanted to know what had happened yesterday. As for Master Miao Jue, he still looked calm and composed. It seemed he didn't care about anything. After we came to a conclusion, the armed police officers held the plastic bombs in their hands and walked toward the statue. The people that Deputy Chief Zhang had sent were the elites of the armed police. Directional explosions weren't a problem. Soon, they stuck the small plastic bombs in different places around the terracotta statue. After they were detonated, a muffled explosion resounded. Crushed stones flew everywhere, creating a big hole. However, the terracotta statue in the middle wasn't damaged at all. The explosive effect wasn't worse than the talismans Chen Yangting had used yesterday. After an armed policeman pulled the terracotta figure out, everyone stared at it closely, especially Chun Yangting. His chi of the way gushed out from his body and enveloped the terracotta figure. Unfortunately, even after the terracotta figure was completely pulled out, he did not find anything wrong even after a long time had passed. His face was full of doubt. What was even more strange was that there was no soft tube connected to the terracotta statue's feet. I looked at it for a long time, feeling discouraged. Then, I moved closer to take a look. There was a hole as big as a wrist underneath the terracotta statue. It seemed there used to be a soft tube connected to it, but I didn't know why it had disappeared. I pondered for a while. This terracotta statue was different from the one we had found yesterday. One had shaman energy, while the other didn't. Did that soft tube absorb the shaman energy from the corpse inside the terracotta statue? After that, the tube disappeared. Professor Liang studied the statue for a while. Then he stood up and looked pensive. We need to move forward to check the other terracotta statues. Han Wen'en stood up. Yesterday, after Chen Yangting dug out the terracotta statues, an accident happened around half an hour later. He asked us to wait for another half an hour to check the situation. Apparently, he was stalling for time. However, his words made sense, and no one dared to refute him. We stopped and rested for half an hour. Half an hour later, everything was still normal. Then we resumed our journey. The walls of the cave and the stone road under our feet were smooth. Except for the terracotta statues on both sides, there was nothing else. Professor Liang had been observing the terracotta statues along the way. I thought that he would dig them up again to check the situation. If that happened, it would be a waste of time. I didn't expect that Professor Liang didn't want to dig up more terracotta statues. We continued to walk until we reached the place where we had dug out the terracotta statue yesterday. Chapter 299. I didn't know if it was a coincidence or not, but when I turned to look at Professor Liang, he also turned to look at me. Our eyes met. When our eyes met, I suddenly had a strange feeling. I was secretly observing him to find out his secret. However, from his eyes, I felt as if my secret had been seen through. I felt a little guilty and quickly moved my eyes away. At this moment, the armed policeman had placed the directional bombs around the terracotta statue. Before they were about to detonate, Han Wen'en called them and reminded them to step back so that they could control it from a distance. Compared to Professor Liang, I knew him better. Of course, he didn't know that there was something strange about the terracotta statue. It was just that this place was deep inside the cave, and he was always cautious. Different from his cautiousness, the armed policemen were ignorant and fearless. They didn't look scared at all. However, because of Han Wen'en's identity, they reluctantly took a few steps back and pressed the button to detonate the bomb. Directional explosions were different from ordinary explosions. The power of the explosives was concentrated on the wall of the mountain, which created a small sound. After a muffled explosion, the mountain wall shattered, and a big hole was created around the terracotta statue. After experiencing Chun Yangting's encounter with an evil spirit yesterday, Han Wen'en, I, and the others' nerves were completely tense at this moment. We gathered all our Dao Qi and stared at the big hole around the terracotta figurines with extreme vigilance. After waiting for half a minute, the terracotta statue and the big hole around it didn't show any abnormalities. Han Wen'en and I exchanged looks. We stopped the armed policeman who wanted to check the situation. When we were about to go there, Chen Yangting suddenly pulled us back. He shook his head and said, "You two stay back and be on guard. I'm going to check it out first. Yesterday, I guessed it was around this time that he was affected. I want to see what the evil spirit is." Chun Yangting was a member of the metaphysics world and the hall master of the celestial master mansion, but he had encountered an evil spirit. If this news spread out, it would be really embarrassing. I could understand why Chen Yongting wanted to find out the truth. However, he had been affected yesterday, so why was he so confident today? I immediately stopped. With these two fools helping me, I didn't need to take risks. Han Wennan hesitated for a moment, but before he could make a decision, Chen Yongting had already walked over. Although Chen Yongting was confident, he was not stupid enough to pull the terracotta out. Instead, he took out a red talisman and threw it in front of the terracotta after receiving the Qi of the Way. A burst of flames ignited and then instantly extinguished. The scarlet talisman had already turned into ashes and scattered on the ground. At the same time, a surging Qi of the Way gushed out, and a figure wearing a horned crown, a robe, and a 3-foot-long sword appeared in front of the terracotta figurine. He reached out to grab the terracotta figurine and pulled it out. I wasn't very familiar with the scarlet talismans, so I couldn't see any clues from the talismans. However, as soon as I saw the silhouette, I immediately recognized Chen Yongting's talisman. This was an energy shield talisman. To be precise, it was the Jia Wu lightning chasing talisman. This lightning chasing talisman had nothing to do with heavenly thunder. It was only because of the Jia Wu god worshipped by the Taoists that the Jia Wu god was known as the thunder-chasing general. After the terracotta figurine fell out, I didn't have time to see if there was a soft tube connected to it. Instead, I saw a wisp of black air coming out of the black hole, shooting toward the thunder-chasing general. Chen Yongting's eyes brightened, and he immediately threw out the second talisman he had prepared. This talisman turned into a barrier. It didn't directly go toward the black air, but rather it blocked the thunder-chasing general's back. The Jia Wu lightning-chasing general was just a phantom summoned by the talisman. The black air was extremely fast, and when it hit the thunder-chasing general, it pierced through his body and hit the barrier behind him. This time, it was not so easy to pass through. Although that barrier talisman was a talisman that I had never heard of, its power was not ordinary. It was like a flexible spider web that completely wrapped the black gas, making it unable to rush out for a while. At the same time, Chen Yongting lifted his foot and took a step forward. He had already prepared the heavenly footwork technique. He put his right index finger and middle finger together, holding a small talisman between them. He then pointed his fingers at the black air. As his finger moved forward, the talisman between his fingers had already turned into ashes. When his finger touched the black gas, a bright lightning bolt suddenly fell from the dark sky of the cave. It pierced the black gas at a speed invisible to the naked eye. The black air was also extraordinary. At this moment, it had already broken through the barrier and was about to charge toward Chen Yongting. Unfortunately, the lightning bolt had already struck. No matter how fast the black air was, it couldn't be faster than the lightning bolt. After being struck, it turned into a wisp of black smoke and disappeared. From the time Chen Yongting had used the first Jia Wu lightning-chasing talisman until now, it had only been 10 seconds. During this time, he had used 3 talismans in a row, each more powerful than the previous one. The power of Mount Longhu's talismans was vividly displayed. Although I had been cursing him for being a fool, I couldn't help but be impressed by his strength at this moment. He could stall everyone here and delay the exposure of the true dragon's vein. I had already determined that the terracotta was not dangerous. The next step was to cut off the soft tube and transport it out. Only I had a long sword instrument on me. Moreover, I had other hidden intentions. Naturally, I would not pass on this task. I walked forward and carefully used my shaman chi to send the snake spirit out. Only then did I gather my Dao Qi on the green hillock sword and cut off the soft tube at the bottom of the terracotta's feet. The snake spirit was cunning. I had told him about the situation here. As soon as the soft tube was cut, he went to the opening and greedily swallowed the liquid inside. Then he didn't linger and returned to my body. With the witchcraft energy and his ethereal body, no one had noticed him. Moreover, at this moment, Han Wennan, Chun Yangting, and I were all looking at the soft tube that was connected to the mountain wall. Yesterday, when we had cut the soft tube, it had retreated as if it was a living creature. We were all startled. Today, of course, we wanted to see it clearly. However, the soft tube was very fast. After it was cut, it retreated as fast as lightning. Although we were all looking at it, we couldn't tell if it was a living creature or not. After a short rest, we went to the second terracotta figure that Professor Liang had pointed at. After the explosion, Han Wennan proactively went to take the terracotta figure and let Qin Yangting rest to recover his Tao energy. I stood behind her and looked at Han Wennan with a surprised expression. Even though I had always thought highly of him, his actions still made me secretly shocked. It must be known that Qin Yangting had the cultivation of glory of knowledge late stage, and it wasn't easy for him to deal with the black gas restriction. He had just reached glory of knowledge not long ago, and he actually dared to take the initiative to handle this matter. I didn't know about the others, but at the very least, I didn't have the confidence to deal with this restriction. Han Wennan's method was different from Qin Yangting's. He didn't use talismans, but used two magic tools at the same time. The leaf magic tool blocked the attack, and the copper ball that he saw yesterday hit the target, directly dispersing the black gas. This bronze ball artifact was obviously an artifact that he had never used before, but its power was really terrifying. It had the same effect as Chun Yangting's Heavenly Thunder Talisman. To be precise, it should be stronger than the Heavenly Thunder Talisman. After all, Chun Yangting's power was slightly stronger, and Han Wennan could use a lower cultivation to release the same power. This bronze ball artifact was naturally stronger than the Heavenly Thunder Talisman. Holding the green mound sword, I walked forward to cut the soft tube. I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. Chapter 300. What could I do even if I didn't want to? I wasn't a person who liked to take risks. Compared to the danger of encountering the Heavenly Master, the sense of loss in my heart was nothing. Han Wennan and the others were the proud sons of heaven. Their current achievements were destined. As for me, I was lucky to have survived until now. I didn't need to compare myself to them. If I had a chance, I would go there and have a share of the magic energy. If I didn't, I wouldn't be angry. If I couldn't find a chance, there was still the Tai Sui in Thailand. There was always a safe way. I quickly put my thoughts aside and walked forward. I cut the soft tube and helped the spirit serpent swallow the liquid inside. Along the way, the density of the terracotta warriors with magic energy increased. Later on, all the terracotta warriors had magic energy. In the following day, we had only moved 20 meters forward. Every time we dug a terracotta statue, we would encounter the black aura's restriction. Everyone was in a state of tension. Han Wennan's goal of delaying had been achieved. Regardless of whether it was Chun Yangting or Miao Ju, neither of them had the time to sense the true dragon vein's aura, let alone discover it. Han Wennan and I had the same interests. In the morning, we had dug out more than 10 terracotta figures. I had to cut off the flexible tubes on each terracotta figure. Yesterday, the sword was stained with a drop of liquid. Today, I purposely slashed my sword against the mountain wall, leaving as many flexible tubes as possible on the terracotta statue's side. Correspondingly, the amount of liquid that could be obtained would be greater. According to my estimation, The spirit serpent had swallowed dozens of drops of liquid from each terracotta warrior. There were more than 10 terracotta warriors, so they had swallowed several hundred drops. The concentration of the liquid was much lower than the true dragon saliva. However, several hundred drops were equal to half of the true dragon saliva I had swallowed last time. I estimated that if the spirit serpent swallowed more than 10 terracotta warriors, it would have the same amount as the true dragon saliva I had swallowed last time. As I thought about this, I became suspicious. The spirit snake had only swallowed a small portion of the liquid left in the body after the soft tube was cut off. Moreover, there were only 20 of them, yet they were equivalent to the drop of true dragon saliva that I had swallowed. If the size of the true dragon vein was the same as the true dragon saliva, then wouldn't the true dragon vein in front of them be hundreds of times larger than the one in the jade bracelet? Although the true dragon vein in the jade bracelet had been used by the Metaphysics Association for many years, it was inevitable that it would become weaker and smaller. However, I still found it hard to believe that there was such a big difference. If I was a descendant of some aristocratic family, I might have to fight for it. Unfortunately, I wasn't, so I could only let the Han clan take advantage of it. At noon, when we stopped to rest and eat, I purposely chose a place far away from everyone to sit down. I secretly called out the spirit snake and asked him about his current situation, how far he was from transforming into a dragon, and how much of that liquid he needed. The spirit snake excitedly scuttled around on my back. If it wasn't for my repeated reminders, this fellow who couldn't keep his cool would have laughed out loud. After he excitedly scuttled around for a long time, he finally stopped and told me that he had stored more than half of the true dragon blood that he needed to transform into a dragon. As long as he could dig out a dozen more terracotta warriors in the afternoon, it would be enough for him to transform into a dragon. I became excited. After the spirit snake transformed into a dragon, it would be equivalent to the celestial master realm. Although he was always crazy, unreliable, and liked to take advantage of others, his loyalty wasn't a problem. When he successfully transformed into a dragon, he would be a great help to me. While I was calculating whether or not I could dig out enough terracotta warriors in the afternoon, Han Wenren suddenly walked towards me from afar. I quickly asked the spirit snake to go back and eat a few mouthfuls of rice. When Han Wenren arrived in front of me, I smiled and asked him, "What's up?" Han Wenren had always been a serious person. At this moment, he wore a smile on his face. After he sat down next to me, he lowered his voice and said, "Our Han family has arrived. I'm here to inform you that you don't have to deliberately slow down in the afternoon." At first, I was stunned. Then, a warning siren sounded in my head. I turned my head to hide the panic on my face and asked him, "Your family has arrived in Shenzhen. So soon? The true dragon vein should be not far from here. If we don't slow down in the afternoon, won't Miaojue and the others find us?" The Han family had arrived too quickly. According to my original estimation, they would arrive at night at the earliest. At that time, I would have gathered enough liquid to avoid them. As long as I stayed far away from them, I wouldn't have to meet the Celestial Master. As for this case, the Han family would have discovered the problem when they were dealing with the true dragon vein. It was highly likely that they would have taken care of it. But now that the Han family had arrived, it had completely disrupted my plan. He said that it would be fine if they arrived in Shenzhen, but if they were already here, it would be over. It would be impossible to avoid meeting them. Once my identity was exposed, I would definitely die today. Han Wenren smiled mysteriously at me and shook his head. Of course, it's not just in Shenzhen. The direct descendants of the Han family have a special magical tool. When they are very close to us, we can sense it. The person who came is my fourth uncle. He should be in this cave by now. As for Miao Jue and Chen Daozhong, it's already too late for them to find the true dragon vein. It's over. These two words popped up in my mind. My face instantly paled. If it wasn't for the dark cave, I wouldn't have been able to conceal my expression. I didn't say anything for a long time, but Han Wenren didn't suspect anything. He said to me excitedly, "This time, it's all thanks to Brother Zhang. Don't worry. Our Han family always knows how to repay favors. After this matter is over, if Brother Zhang needs anything, you can tell us. As long as we can do it, our Han family won't hesitate." At this moment, I finally recovered from my desperate thoughts. My brain was spinning crazily. The celestial master of the Han family was about to arrive, but I wasn't willing to give up. I immediately said to Han Wennan, "Brother Han, it's not the time to celebrate yet. We can't be careless. Although the celestial master of the Han family is here, it's best if we can keep this a secret. Why don't we wait until we return and let the Han family secretly take over this place? We won't leak any information. Isn't that better?" The only thing I could fight for now was Han Wennan's attitude. I hoped that he could influence the celestial master of the Han family and persuade him to return before he found me. It was the only way I could escape with my life. Unexpectedly, Han Wenren smiled and said faintly, "My fourth uncle has arrived. It doesn't matter if Qin Yongting and the others find out. Moreover, my fourth uncle just sent me a message. He told me that we don't need to hide this matter. It's better to let Qin Yongting and the others spread the news. In the afternoon, we should speed up. We don't need to worry about Professor Liang's terracotta warriors anymore. We should move forward and find the true dragon vein first." His words were completely out of my expectations. However, after thinking about it for a while, I instantly understood what he meant. It wasn't a secret that the true dragon vein of the Metaphysics Society had been lost. The young Phoenix gathering that was held once every 3 years was approaching. At that time, the Metaphysics Society would definitely be at a loss. At such a crucial moment, the Han family suddenly obtained a true dragon vein. It didn't matter if they wanted to use it to attract the youths of the Metaphysics Society to join them or use it to help the Metaphysics Society overcome this crisis. It would greatly increase their power and prestige. Thus, not only did the Han family not want to hide it, they even wanted to publicize it with great fanfare. Under such circumstances, Qin Yongting and monk Miao Ju were the best publicity tools. There was indeed no need to hide it. Chapter 301. I didn't know if the celestial master of the Han family didn't see me or if he had something more important than killing me, so he didn't have time to deal with me. I could only hope for the best and pretend that he hadn't seen me yet. I had two choices. One was to turn around and leave this place, and the other was to brace myself and keep going. There was no need to mention how dangerous it would be if we kept going. The Celestial Master's goal was the true dragon vein in front of us. If we kept going, we would eventually meet him. The danger of turning around and leaving wasn't small at all. With my current strength, even if I closed my eyes, I could still sense anything within a 10-meter radius around me, not to mention the Celestial Master's ability. So, if the Han family's Celestial Master really didn't notice me, it couldn't be that he had walked past us and missed me. It could only be that he had encountered something and was delayed, so he hadn't met us yet. If that was the case, if I turned around now, I would bump into him. While I was hesitating, a clear voice came to my ears. "Mr. Zhang." I turned around and saw Professor Liang's female student, Mu Xian. I was surprised. "What's up?" Mu Xian smiled. "Professor Liang asked me to invite you over. He said he has something to discuss with you." I lifted my head and saw Professor Liang sitting not far from me. When he saw me looking at him, he nodded and smiled at me. At this moment, I was facing a life-or-death situation. I didn't have time to discuss things with this strange Professor Liang. Instinctively, I wanted to reject him. Mu Xian suddenly came closer to me and said mysteriously, "Professor Liang said that he can help you with what you're doing. He asked you to come with him." I was moved. He can help me with what I'm doing? To help me deal with the Han family's celestial master, or to help me escape. However, after thinking about it, I shook my head with a wry smile. The celestial master's prestige wasn't easy to deal with. I was afraid that wasn't what Professor Liang was talking about. However, I didn't reject him. I nodded and followed Mu Xian to Professor Liang. A drowning man would inevitably try to grab a life-saving straw. It didn't matter if Professor Liang was a life-saving straw or an illusory bubble. As long as I could grab it, I would try to grab it. I sat cross-legged in front of Professor Liang. I looked at him and asked, "What's the matter?" Professor Liang had a fake smile on his face. After a long silence, he said, "In the morning, I saw that Mr. Zhang was very interested in the terracotta figures that were dug out. Did Mr. Zhang find something on them?" I wasn't sure what he meant. After hesitating for a moment, I said half-truthfully, "That's right. However, I'm not interested in the terracotta figurines. I'm interested in the soft tube below the terracotta figurines. The liquid inside the tube will help my cultivation." "I see." Professor Liang smiled and nodded. "In that case, how many more terracotta figures do you need?" "In the afternoon, I will instruct them to dig a few more to satisfy Mr. Zhang's needs." I wasn't in the mood to take the liquid from the terracotta figurines. The spirit serpent needed 10 more terracotta figurines to transform into a dragon. However, it didn't mean that it would transform immediately. It would need more time to digest all the liquid. After that, it would have to go through a life and death ordeal to transform into a dragon. It wouldn't be of any help to my current predicament. However, Professor Liang's words made me curious. After hesitating for a while, I said, "I need around 10 more terracotta figurines." "Professor Liang, I'm very grateful for your help. If there's anything you need me to do, please don't hesitate to tell me." He laughed and shook his head. "I just want to know why Mr. Zhang is interested in these terracotta figurines." "Mr. Zhang, you're a straightforward person. I already know the reason. Mr. Zhang, don't worry. This afternoon, I will instruct them to dig up 10 more terracotta figurines." Then he stood up and asked the others to get back to work. I was bewildered by his strange words, but I wasn't as panicky as before. After thinking for a while, I decided to follow the others and move forward. Whether we moved forward or retreated, the danger was the same. If we moved forward, the spirit serpent would have enough true dragon saliva. Moreover, there was the true dragon vein and the possibility of the Tai Sui. Putting aside the true dragon vein, the Tai Sui was much stronger than the Heavenly Master. If we could get the Tai Sui's protection, we wouldn't need to worry about the Heavenly Master of the Han family. After making up my mind, I didn't hesitate anymore. I packed my things and followed the others. Professor Liang kept his promise. Soon, he asked the others to dig more terracotta figurines. He didn't care about Han Wennan's urging. Han Wennan didn't know what to do with him. After digging 10 terracotta figurines, he agreed to move forward at full speed. After swallowing the liquid from 10 more terracotta figurines, the spirit serpent told me that it had enough true dragon blood to transform into a dragon. Satisfied, it returned to my back and didn't move again. We moved forward at full speed for dozens of meters. The aura of the true dragon vein in front of us was very thick. Chen Yangting finally sensed it. He halted and screamed, "The aura in front of us. It's the true dragon vein." Then he turned to look at me, Han Wennan, and the others with a face full of surprise. However, when he saw our calm faces, the joy on his face disappeared. He put on a skeptical face and asked, "Did you already know about it?" His words made me feel awkward. Even though the Taoist and Xian schools came from the same lineage, they were still different. My Han clan's celestial master elder is stationed there. Chun Yangting's expression instantly darkened. Han Wennan's meaning couldn't be clearer. The Han clan's celestial master elder was right there. What right did he have to fight for it? Furthermore, Han Wennan hinted that the Metaphysics Association was also aware of the situation. The Celestial Master Mansion was very powerful. While the Han clan might not be a match for them, the Metaphysics Association wasn't one to be trifled with. After pulling the Metaphysics Association in, how could the Celestial Master Mansion use force? I sighed as I watched from the side. Although Han Wennan looked honest and sincere on the surface, in reality, how could an honest person make it this far in the pugilistic world? Chun Yangting was silent for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "I see. Then I'll follow fellow Taoist Han to pay a visit to the Han clan's celestial master elder." Chapter 302. After walking for dozens of steps, a white light suddenly appeared in front of us. This light wasn't very strong, but it was very obvious under the light of the searchlights. The true dragon vein was the foundation of cultivation. The cultivators in this world, including the geomasters, had to obtain their Tao energy from the true dragon vein. Han Wennan, Chun Yangting, and I weren't unfamiliar with this white light. It was the light of the true dragon vein. Although Han Wennan and I had sensed the true dragon vein's aura yesterday, aura was just an aura. When we saw this white light, we were sure that it was the true dragon vein. Everybody was excited. They lifted their feet and were about to move forward. Han Wennan suddenly stopped and turned to Professor Liang and the armed police officers. "It's dangerous ahead. You shouldn't move forward. You should go back for now. We've taken a lot of terracotta warriors today. I'm afraid you'll have to walk a few more times to transport them all out. After you're done, we'll leave this place after we're done here. If we're late, we'll have to trouble Professor Liang to tell Deputy Bureau Chief Zhang not to worry." Professor Liang wasn't an ordinary person. If Han Wennan could sense the shamanic energy, he would know that. However, Han Wennan didn't know the existence of shamanic energy. Of course, he treated him as an ordinary expert. I thought that Professor Liang wouldn't be willing to leave. However, he nodded without hesitation. He didn't even bother to ask. He called his 2 students, and the other armed police officers turned around and walked back. He didn't seem to be curious about the true dragon vein in front of him. After they were far away, Han Wennan pointed forward and said with a smile, "Guys, please." Chun Yangting snorted and took the lead. As we moved forward, the white light became brighter. It illuminated the cave as if it was daytime. After walking for around 100 meters, we finally saw the exit of the cave. The true dragon vein was so big that this cave couldn't contain it. If I wasn't wrong, the exit would lead to a massive space where the true dragon vein was. As we moved forward, the true dragon energy in the air was so thick that we didn't even need to absorb it. The dragon energy automatically entered our bodies. I turned my head to take a look. No matter if it was Han Wennan or Chun Yangting, their faces were rosy. This wasn't because they were in a good mood, but because of the nourishment from the true dragon chi. The true dragon vein in front of them was incomparable to the true dragon vein of the Metaphysical Society. The true dragon vein of the Metaphysical Society had been used for many years and was already broken. This true dragon vein, on the other hand, had been accumulating power for an unknown period of time. This was the first time a cultivator saw it. No matter how big the true dragon vein in front of us was, it couldn't make them have such an exaggerated expression. It was because of the Tai Sui. The first time I saw Little Gold and the so-called Heavenly Law's corpse in the corpse insect, my expression wasn't much better than theirs. But now, I had seen the true dragon vein and the Tai Sui more than once. The only strange thing this time was that the true dragon vein and the Tai Sui were together. I confidently stepped out of the cave. When I lifted my head to look, I was dumbfounded. No matter if it was the true dragon vein or the Tai Sui, they wouldn't surprise me. Even if there were 3 true dragon veins and 5 Tai Sui, I wouldn't be completely dumbfounded. However, the scene in front of me was beyond my imagination. It wasn't much different from what I had expected. The true dragon vein and the Tai Sui were both here, and there was only one of each. However, the Tai Sui in front of me was one with the true dragon vein. To be precise, there was a 100-meter-tall giant standing in the huge cave in front of me. He was squatting and leaning forward. This giant didn't have a head, neck, or shoulders. Above his chest, the dark brown body was gone. Instead, it was replaced by an illusory flood dragon. The flood dragon's body was covered in layers of fine, fluorescent white scales. 2 short arms, also covered in scales, extended from both sides. Below them were tiger paws and eagle claws. Above the flood dragon's neck was a dragon head with antlers and a camel's head. It had rabbit eyes and cow ears. Above the dragon head were 2 huge dragon eyes that were facing the cave we had just come out of. When the dragon eyes opened and closed, light overflowed. Below the dragon's mouth, there was also a drop of milky white true dragon saliva. It wasn't any different from the true dragon vein I had seen before. The only difference was that the drop of true dragon saliva was very big. It was only a little smaller than the dragon head. Moreover, the true dragon saliva was attached to the mountain wall. There was a thick, soft tube on the mountain wall, and clear liquid constantly gushed out of it. After the liquid gushed into the air, most of it fell to the ground. A part of it that looked like a milky white flocculant floated up and merged with the true dragon saliva. At first glance, I understood that the true dragon saliva didn't come from the dragon's mouth. It came from the soft tube. As for the soft tube, although it was abnormally thick, I could see that it came from the same source as the soft tubes that were connected to the feet of the terracotta warriors in the cave. The true dragon vein's body was transformed from the Tai Sui, and the true dragon saliva came from the terracotta warriors through the soft tube. I suddenly had an absurd thought. Could it be that someone was creating the true dragon vein? It was impossible. Chapter 3:03. The group of people stood there in a daze for half a minute. The first to react was still Qin Yangting. He had a look of disbelief on his face as he turned around and looked at Han Wennan. He asked, almost incoherently, "This dragon vein? Why is this dragon vein in human form?" Han Wennan's usual calm expression was gone. He stood there with a puzzled expression. How could he answer Qin Yangting? I was dumbstruck as I listened to their conversation. The dragon vein taking the form of a human? Only Qin Yangting could think of that. However, I couldn't blame him. The Tai Sui was just a legend to the people in the metaphysics world. Just like Goldie, I had seen him many times, but I didn't recognize him. If Liang Tianxin hadn't followed me to the Yellow Spring River and called him out, I probably wouldn't have known that Tai Sui existed in this world. Han Wennan did not speak, but Qin Yangting spoke more. He seemed to have understood something. He turned his head and stared at Han Wennan. He asked, "You said that this is the dragon vein of your Han family, and that there is a celestial master of the Han family guarding it. Now that we're here, where's the Han family's celestial master? Also, if this is the Han family's dragon vein, let me ask you, why did the dragon vein take the form of a human? Normally, Han Wen'en would have been able to deal with Qin Yangting's questions, but at this moment, he was distracted by the Tai Sui true dragon vein before him, and Qin Yangting had the upper hand with his words. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Qin Yangting didn't let him off easily. He took a step forward and said, I always thought that Brother Han was a sincere gentleman who treated people with sincerity. I didn't expect that Brother Han would deceive us in order to monopolize the true dragon vein. I immediately understood. Qin Yangting had the thought of snatching the true dragon's vein. Mount Longhu was different from the Han family. They had 2,000 years of Taoist heritage, and they had no lack of true dragon veins. Hence, after listening to Han Wen'en, Qin Yangting didn't resist and gave up on the fight for the true dragon vein. However, it was different now. Regardless of whether it was metaphysics or Taoism, anomalies were treasures bestowed by the heavens. Anomalies in one's life could lead to great things, and anomalies in objects could be considered rare and precious. This true dragon vein was a rare treasure in the first place. At this moment, it gave birth to a phenomenon, not just us cultivators of the glory of consciousness realm. Even the celestial masters on Dragon Tiger Mountain, who were in seclusion all year round to study the heavenly Tao, would be moved. As long as they could obtain this true dragon vein and offer it to their sect, it would be Qin Yangting's qualification to advance. Most importantly, the heavenly master of the Han clan did not appear. Not only did Qin Yangting have strange thoughts, but I also had some plans. My abilities might not be a match for Qin Yangting and Han Wen'en, but I still had the snake spirit on me. With the help of the old, which, after he molted, he already had the cultivation of glory of consciousness. Now that he had swallowed so much saliva of the real dragon, he was only a step away from transforming into a dragon. Our combined powers were not much weaker than Qin Yangting's. If the Han family's celestial master did not come, I would dare to stay here and absorb the Tai Sui's shaman qi. Unfortunately, Qin Yangting dared to take the gamble, but I did not. Qin Yangting only found out about the true dragon vein today. Judging by his own experience, he might guess that Han Wen'en only found it today. However, I knew that Han Wen'en found the true dragon vein yesterday. The probability of the Han family's celestial master being in this cave was much higher than the probability of him not being in the cave. So, the only thought in my mind was to escape. Qin Yangting and Han Wen'en would definitely fight. I would watch from the side. If the two of them really fought, and the Han family's celestial master did not appear, it proved that the Han family's celestial master had met with an accident. By then, I would have no more worries and escape first. So, I leaned against the mountain wall and stood still. I silently absorbed the surrounding Tai Sui's surging shaman qi and watched Qin Yangting and Han Wen'en's verbal confrontation. At that moment, Han Wen'en finally reacted. He looked at Qin Yangting coldly and said, Although this is the Han family's dragon vein, it's my first time here. I don't know about the dragon vein's transformation. If Chen Daozhong thinks that I'm lying because of this, it's ridiculous. Frankly speaking, my fourth uncle is the one guarding this place. He's been guarding this place for a long time. He's probably in seclusion right now. If Chen Daozhong has other thoughts because my fourth uncle hasn't shown up, I advise you to reconsider. Don't regret it when it's too late. Han Wen'en's heart was firm, and his words were not polite at all. Qin Yangting gritted his teeth, and his expression changed. It was obvious that he could not make up his mind. While the two of them were in a deadlock, the shaman qi source stone in my body suddenly changed. When I was in the tunnel outside, I had absorbed the surrounding shaman chi into my body. The shaman chi source stone had already expanded to the size of a walnut. Now that I was near the Tai Sui, the shaman chi source stone was even denser. I had only absorbed for a short while, and the shaman chi source stone had expanded again. Moreover, it had reached the boundary between 1 and 2 stars. In the heavenly vein, the walnut-sized shaman chi source stone suddenly spun. As it spun, the middle of the shaman chi source stone slowly caved in like a cell dividing. From a sphere, it gradually turned into a spindle. After that, the depression in the middle became deeper, and it slowly became 2 connected spheres. Then, it gradually separated into 2 thumb-sized dark green spheres. The moment the 2 spheres separated, a large amount of shaman chi surged into my meridians and gathered around the 2 ink spheres, wrapping them up. My body shook, and I felt an extremely comfortable feeling spreading from my limbs. I felt extremely clear, and all the pores on my body opened up. Endless power filled my body, and even my vision seemed to have improved. When I raised my head, everything around me became clearer. At the same time, the large amount of shaman chi that surged into my body formed a gust of wind around me. The sudden phenomenon attracted Han Wen and Chen Yangting's gazes. At the start, the two of them were confused, but very quickly an expression of disbelief appeared on their faces. They practically said at the same time, "Zhou Yi." I was stunned at first. Then I lowered my head to look at the EMO bead that I kept close to my body. Just now, when my realm had increased, the shaman energy that had surged into my body had completely isolated the Tao energy. Without the support of the Tao energy, the EMO bead had completely lost its effect. My appearance had also returned to my original appearance. I didn't have time to think, and instantly took out the Yin Yang Yama brush. At the same time, I took a step to the side with my left leg, and was prepared to use the heavenly step technique. After being surrounded by the 10 masters of the Metaphysics Association, I knew that I was the enemy of the entire metaphysics world. It didn't matter if Han Wen and Chen Yangting were my friends or foes. We would be mortal enemies when we met in the future. The situation was extremely chaotic. Chen Yangting and Han Wen wanted to snatch the true dragon vein, and I was their common enemy. The 3 of us stood in a triangle and looked at each other. As we were wary of each other, we were in a stalemate, and no one dared to make the first move. My mind worked quickly. At that moment, Han Wen was the least anxious. The Han family's master would definitely appear, and it was just a matter of time. Although Chen Yangting definitely wouldn't be able to obtain the true dragon vein, the Han family's master wouldn't dare to easily take his life, as he was the master of the mysterious altar hall. The one in the most danger was me. Once the Han family's master appeared, it would be hard for me to survive. After understanding the situation, I said to Chen Yangting, "Chen Daozhang, although we have an old grudge, your current goal is the true dragon vein. The Han family's master will indeed arrive soon. If you want to deal with me, you won't have a chance after the Han family's master arrives. But as long as you and I work together to escape from this cave, you can get in touch with your sect